Hey, what's up? I'm X, and welcome back to the 4 Idiots series, the series where I try to teach you how to do bosses in RuneScape as quickly as possible with as little filler as possible. Please like, comment, and sub so that these videos get recommended when people search for them. Today, I'm going to teach you how to do the Tombs of Amascut. This is going to be a tricky one to explain, so I'm going to need you to listen to these disclaimers. TOA has 44 invocations that can change the raid very minimally or in significant ways depending on which ones you put on. This video would be incredibly long if I were to go through them all right now. What I'm going to do is go through each room at its completely blank slate, and then afterwards I'll tell you how it could have been different with certain invocations. It will be up to you to decide if you want to add them later on or not. I have a list of invocations that I like to do to make a 150 raid, but that's going to vary person to person, but I just want to give you the resources. Try to add invocations here and there and make your raid a little bit harder for the better unique potential, or take away invocations that you're struggling with. I encourage you to jump around this guide and see what works for you. That being said, let's get into it. To get to Tombs of Amascut, you'll have to have done the Beneath Cursed Sands quest. Take the Fairy Ring AKP with 62 agility, or take the Pharaoh Scepter after using it on the obelisk near the mine. Run into the pyramid into the lobby. This is where you and your team are going to assemble as well as set the difficulty of your raid. You're going to want a good mix of all attack styles, but with an emphasis on melee stab offense. Most players are going to use a melee setup with only a 3 to 5 way switch for the other styles. Your inventory should have a good mix of brews, restores, and super combats or super ranging potions, whatever. Here's two wildly different price point setups as a reference. Please remember to use what you have. Your best stab weapon is your best stab weapon. To get to a normal TOA level, which is a 150, with the least amount of stress in my opinion, you should be running the following. Softcore Run, which will allow you 3 death wipes throughout the entire raid. Walk for It, which allows you 40 minutes to complete. Deadly Prayers, which will drain your prayers if you get hit off of prayer. Usually just bringing 1 prayer potion offsets it entirely. On a Diet makes it so that you can't use hard food like a fish, but brews are still untouched. Blowing Mud, which will make Kephri's dung attack only happen to 2 players. Aerial Assault, which is good in small groups but catastrophic in bigger groups. And for Zebak, I like to use Not Just a Head, Arterial Spray, and Blood Thinners. Although if you struggle with Zebak, you should use some other invocations to compensate. Feeling Special is also a pretty free invocation once you've learned it. Gotta have faith and shaking things up, and that's all. I'm going to explain what each invocation does when we get to those particular rooms, but before we go in, I'm going to explain the global invocations. These skulls here limit the amount of deaths that you can have for the whole team or wipes. So for Softcore, for example, you and your team would all have to die 3 times. The little clocks lessen your time by 5 minutes each. If you don't make the time, you get double the score removed. Try a couple runs and see if you're regularly completing faster than the times you have on. The Help invocations reduce the amount of food and supplies that you get from the raid. Try some standard raids, and if you're finishing with too many supplies, consider turning these on. The Path invocations. Each boss can level up, and their levels can mean different things depending on the boss. For example, Zebak and Kephri shoot out projectiles a lot faster. The only viable Prayers invocation is the Deadly Prayers. Quiet Prayers is basically unusable. On a Diet is a relatively inoffensive invocation. It just means you can't use fish or typical hard food. Dehydration is a lot harder in that you can't use brews or ambrosias. Lastly, Overly Draining will use 100% of your special attack when you spec. If you aren't using special attacks anyways, then this could just be a free invocation for you. Have all of your teammates apply to your team, accept them all, and then head over to the camel. Sip some super combats and stuff before going in, and then head into the doorway over there. Now there are 4 rooms that must be completed to get to the final boss. You can do them in any order. My personal preference is to start with Baba, then Kephri, Akkha, and then finishing with Zebak. Each room has a puzzle before the boss fight. Let's start with Baba. Entering Baba's room, you should grab a hammer and a stack of potions either before or after the barrier. Once you pass the barrier, the room will start. Take note of which player's name orb in the top left is blue. This player will temporarily be in charge of guiding the team through obstacles in the room. That player will see a big red monkey skull over either the pillars of the room, the vents of the room, or all of the other players will turn red. These will correlate to either using a potion while standing on a vent, repairing a pillar with a hammer in your inventory, or using a potion as an AoE thing on all of your teammates, or you can directly use it. You will only need to do this for as many players as there are, meaning that in a 3-man you would only have to do 3 vents, but in a 6-man you'd only have to do 4 pillars. In more than one player raids, all the players also may turn red as previously mentioned. You will either need to stand next to them and use a vial, or use it directly on them. The most common way to deal with this special attack is to meet either south or north of the statue in the center of the room. Players not in voice communications may also say DD, P for pillars, or V for vents, respectively. These special attacks will last for the duration of the room while you clear out the monkeys. There are 7 types of monkeys, each weak to the opposite combat triangle attack style. You will always hit your max hit on if you attack them correctly. There are red meleeers, green rangers, blue majors, brown volatile monkeys which explode when they reach you and will deal damage if you're stood next to them, monkey shamans who will attack with magic and spawn little thralls which will attack with melee and drain prayer, and finally cursed baboons who will leave venom trails around where they walk. In lower invocation raids you can typically get away with just blowpiping all the monkeys, but using the correct style will always be better. You do not need to do a gigantic switch to kill the monkeys either. I usually just do a 2-way and make sure I'm praying piety, and that's normally fine. Complete your tasks, kill the baboons, and the room will be finished. Baba is the boss of this path. She only attacks with melee, but she has many attacks that she'll throw at you. When you enter the room, she's going to select a tank, usually being the player who entered first. That player should be praying melee and everybody else should be attacking with melee. At 90% of her HP, she's going to drop 2 rocks from the ceiling as well as other debris. Make sure that you're not stood underneath the shadows as they fall and they land. Shortly after this, she will throw a rock that will hit every player in the room. Any player not stood next to one of the boulders on the battlefield or next to the sarcophagi on the wall will take a large amount of damage, usually upwards of 40. You need to divide the HP of these rocks across how many players you have. For example, in a 2-person raid, you'd want 1 person on each rock on arrival. In a 3-person raid, one of the rocks will not have full HP. You may want to coordinate 1 person to always go to the weaker rock and so on. If you're really unable to reach the boulder, you can use the sarcophagi along the wall, but it's not preferable because when the coffins open they shoot sparks onto the map, but it can help in a pinch. After this attack, resume attacking Baba. She will occasionally do this stomp and smash attack here. Just make sure you're not in the way of the shadows and then get right back on her. On her rockfall, she will also sometimes spawn little baboons who will try to open up the wall sarcophagi. Depending on her HP, you may need to kill these baboons to not overwhelm the room. At 66 and 33% of her HP, she will toss you down the slope in the room. As soon as you're sent down, swap to your ranged gear, preferably with a blowpipe. Stand in front of and attack the weakened boulder marked with the black cracks in it. Make sure you're using whatever you can to boost your range damage to either 1 hit or get as close to 1 hitting as possible. Fast landing ranged attacks will clear the boulder quicker than a T-bow at max distance or a bofa, so please keep this in mind. If you're feeling confident breaking through the rocks, you can also run right up to the top and end the phase early by meleeing her like this. Otherwise, you could just mage and range for some free damage. Now that's the entirety of the room, but here's how some modifiers would change it. Shaking things up makes the big plus stomp attack bigger. Honestly, it makes it a little easier to avoid. Gotta have faith. The sparks from the sarcophagi will hurt more, but this is just a free one assuming that you don't normally open the sarcophagus. Jungle japes. Baboons will leave behind a banana peel spot which can damage you and stun you if stood on, but it's relatively harmless and you won't even notice it's on. Boulder Dash. This can be a tough one for new players with low DPS. This makes the boulders come down a lot faster. Add this if you're not having any trouble with the boulders, but even experienced players have difficulties. Mind the Gap. This is the scariest one by far because if you're ever stood over the gap, you'll be thrown back down the hill and instantly die. You'd avoid this by being off to the sides. I have these tiles marked here as my last safe line. You can alternatively be all the way at the top like this. Moving on to the next room, we have Kephri. Let's start with the puzzle room. You will have 6 puzzles in front of you, and in groups of more than 1, you will have to solve both sides, but in solos you can zigzag and only solve 3. I'd heavily encourage you all to install the Tombs of Amascut plugin that highlights and solves all these puzzles, but for players not on RuneLite, here's a quick summary. For this one here, simply hit the button and then hit the 5 tiles that light up in the order that they lit up. For this one, hit the pillars with any ranged weapon and they will all be 1 tick fast. When you've hit the right one, it will glow. Do this in order and find the right pattern. For this puzzle here, standing on a tile will either turn on or off the adjacent tiles. You will need to have them all lit up or right-click and manually flip one to take 20 damage instead. For this puzzle, the tablet will give you a number. Each symbol has a value stated on the board at the beginning of the room. Add them all together and solve. Lastly, we have the memory tile flipping game. You either need to run back and forth solo or coordinate flipping the same tile as a teammate on the opposite side. Once this room is completed, we can head right into Kephri. Kephri is a pretty simple fight. She's weak to stab and the blue Karis works very well here. Before you run in, take note of the order of the orbs in the top left, as Kephri is going to use this to decide who gets her dung attack first. As you run in, start attacking her, and some players will head up north and some players will head down south. Kephri will lob slow fireballs at you that you must get out of the way of. Praying magic will reduce this damage if you can't avoid it. After your first couple attacks, a player will start to have flies surrounding them. This indicates that the player is about to be flung against the wall and section off the arena by the line. What most players will do is stand on this tile here and this tile here to manipulate the first two lines into blocking the meleeer bug in later. Keep damaging Kephri and avoiding fireballs while being mindful of the dung walls. Try to keep them all to the east side as possible. You can also have my tiles here for the perfect poop distribution, but mine is a little overkill. Occasionally, Kephri will lay out some eggs and bombs. The large dark eggs are the ones that will spawn the small agile ranger bugs, and the small light colored ones are AoE bombs. You can destroy these if you'd like, but it's not usually worth it unless you want some death charge. When you've finished Kephri's first bar of HP, she's going to go down and spawn some demi-bugs. The Spitter is the ranger, soldier melee, and arcane is the major. Pray range and either start killing the Spitter or put a blowpipe on and hit the swarms coming from the walls that will heal Kephri. The less that get in, the less HP she starts with, but this is going to depend on how many players you have. Make sure that the ranger is dead before you start damaging Kephri again, especially in a solo. Rinse and repeat until that's second down. Now she will spawn a meleeer and a major. The major is going to be our highest priority, as it is charging attack that if it releases will do a huge amount of damage to everyone. Divide and conquer amongst your team and shoot swarms and damage the major. Once dead, do some cleanup and get back on Kephri. Instead of a third down, Kephri is going to push you against the wall and be on her normal health mode. She's going to take damage a lot easier now, but do a lot more dung attacks, so make sure you finish up quickly. As for invocations go, lively larvae will spawn more of those little agile bugs, but just pray range and you'll be fine. More overlords will spawn more demi-bugs. You'll get a ranger on the second down and a meleeer on the first down. Blowing mud adds one more player to each dung attack. The first two orbs will start it off and go in order from there. This can be helpful for early trapping, but you really need team coordination. Medic. Those little bug swarms from the downs will never stop spawning. It's not really worth putting this on unless you're in a really coordinated big team. Aerial Assault. It's a very hit or miss invocation depending on group size. The single fireball turns into a 3x3 of fireballs, so you just need to coordinate again. That's Kephri, and now that we've completed 2 rooms, a helpful spirit will spawn in the middle of the lobby next to the deposit box pot and offer you a package of either life, which is full of healing and prayer materials, power, which is full of combat boosting salt and special attack reducing potions, and chaos, which can be a perfect mix of the two. You're only allowed one choice right now, and you will get another spirit after the next 2 rooms, so get what you didn't get here. Ideally, you want to be choosing power here, but depending on your gear and supplies, you may want to opt for one of the others. Also, mix and match with teammates if you need. A brief rundown of the supplies offered. Nectars are just Ceridome and Brews. Tears of Elidness are just restores, but they also AoE restore your teammates. Liquid Adrenaline halves your special attack costs, meaning that something that normally costs 50% will only cost 25% for the duration of the potion. Smelling Salts are a super buff to all of your combat stats. People in 99 will reach 125 in each of your combats. Silk Dressings and Jeweled Scarabs do the same thing, but for prayer and health. Silk Dressings will heal you over a short time, and Jeweled Scarabs will restore prayer over a short time. Lastly, and most importantly, are Ambrosias. Ambrosias are a reset button. They overheal you, overprayer you, cure poison, restore run. They do everything, but they don't restore spec energy. This is a great panic button, and you should always have one in your inventory at the end. Whatever one you pick, you'll be thrown into this little supply bag here. I like to swap my shift click option on the bag to resupply, and then take out one of each of the potions I'll be using. As I take sips, I hit resupply to have my inventory potions be refilled. Digging through the bag during a fight is not really an option. Let's move on to Akkha. Akkha's puzzle is very simple, and you're going to want to bring your strongest pickaxe. You can actually store one from the hole in the lobby before you ever even enter the raid. Grab that pickaxe off the statue and head into the room. We're going to use these mirrors to aim these lasers to shoot from this statue into the other statue. The plug-in here helps, but it's not too hard either way. The more players in the room can make it so that the mirrors are dirty and need to be cleaned. Also, don't sit around in AFK, your friends will hate you. Place your mirrors and rotate them like this, and then step in the middle and mine the obelisk. But don't be late, as this is timed. Mining level and pickaxe quality will matter here for getting a 1 down. The laser will hurt you if you're in the way, and also watch out for the little shadow balls. Once you're done, put your pickaxe on the statue and head into the next room. Akkha is a big boy and a terrible holdup for a lot of people. Here's the long-winded gist. Akkha is going to be praying against a particular style. He will also be using the style that he's praying against. He will always start by praying melee and pursuing you immediately. Using your Bofa or Shadow or Sang is great here. Beat him up immediately and feel free to use the butterfly method to avoid him changing his overheads. I'll have another video out on this soon, but basically just don't let him touch you and he'll ever be stuck praying melee. Beat him up until he's at 80% of his HP. At 80% of his HP, he will spawn 4 shadows on each quadrant of the room. These guys will start charging their hourglasses in their section. If they do successfully, they will blow up their own quadrant and hurt you a lot, so we do need to kill them ASAP. Once they're dead, that quadrant will be safe for you to stand on, and dragging Akkha into that quadrant will allow him to be hit. The others will continue charging while you fight. Be mindful of Akkha because he will do one of 2 special attacks. He will either stab the ground with his spear and put shadows or a white glow on all players. The shadow will drop dangerous glowing orbs in front of and behind you wherever you run. Running a quick 2 tiles is not an issue, but any more than that can be tricky and messy up the arena. The white glow, when it expires, will explode into a large plus configuration. Make sure that your teammates aren't in the way, or alternatively just all stand on top of each other. His last special attack is his memory attack. He will stab the ground and disappear, at which point you want to rush to the middle and memorize the puzzle. There will be 4 times that the light glows, and after the 4th, all except for the correct sequence will start exploding. For players who are using the Walk the Path or other path invocations, please note that every 2 levels Akkha goes up by, he will add 1 more memory to the sequence. Lastly is Akkha's orb phase. Akkha will become one of the 4 shadows in each corner able to be hit. All the while, these little white orbs will float around the arena and do 25 damage to you if they hit. Put your best melee gear on and chase him around. Use redemption and stay above 25. Take your time here because it's better to live through this section. Akkha's special invocations are Double Trouble. Akkha does 2 special attacks at once. He usually does the memory and the orb dropper at the same time. This is super hard and I would not recommend it. Keep Back. In addition to his normal attacks, he will also melee every single attack. You will have to pray melee and then pray against the projectile. I wouldn't recommend this one either. Stay Vigilant. More or less he just changes his overheads more, but this isn't too problematic. And Feeling Special, which makes the memory puzzle a lot faster. The time is basically move on explosion. It's a free invocation when you become comfortable with it. Lastly, we have my favorite room, Zebak. Zebak's puzzle is very, very easy and very fun. As soon as you step through the barrier, the timing for the crocodiles will start, so make sure that you're ready to go. Head right in and grab the water vessel from the ground and head to any of the 4 spike path traps. The more players in the raid, the faster the water will respawn, so in solos you'll want to use 2 lanes. Line yourself up on either side of the stick traps and run straight across, putting traps in between you and your 2-tile run. Your character runs 2 tiles at a time, so if you are immediately next to a spike trap, you'll skip over them even if they're extended. Use your water jug on the waterfall and realign yourself in the stick trap configuration we just did, and watch out for the green orbs. Run straight back to the middle and use your water on the plant. Repeat this in a different section and then you're finished. The crocodiles will munch your tree and hurt your water supply, so either freeze or kill them. Also note, if you take damage while holding water, you will lose some of that water as well, so please be careful. Heading into the next room, you'll fight Zebak. Use your best ranged or magic gear and then start beating him up. He will shoot out maged pots and ranged rocks that you have until they land on you to pray against. At 85, 70, 55, and 40% of his health, Zebak will queue 1 of 2 special attacks and then alternate between them. One of those attacks is his roar attack. Zebak will throw out a ton of acid and rocks and pots onto the battlefield. You can push and pull these pots around the arena, and when they break, they will release water that will clear poison from the ground. We need to clear the acid 1 to 3 tiles behind the rocks for safety from the roar. Pushing the pot into the way of the rock will also break it, but you can also just quickly do this by shooting a rolling pot and have it break as well. Keep in mind your distance from the pot to properly land the timing. His other special attack is his Waves attack. Waves will come from either the left or the right of the arena and have gaps in the waves. You can either run into these gaps or do what's known as the wave skip by stepping one tile away and then running through. I have a video on this as well for a bit more thorough of an explanation. When he gets underneath 20% of his HP, he will start attacking much faster, but that's the room. For Zebak's invocations, Not Just Ahead is a big invocation. This allows Zebak to have access to blood magic, which will result in him spawning blobs of blood that will chase you around, and also blood barrage that can really hurt your team if you're stood close together. I think that this invocation as well as the next two are worth turning on because they're fairly simple. Arterial Spray. He heals more from his blood barrages if you're not praying mage. Not a big deal. There will be 3 blobs of blood instead of the big one. I personally think it's a lot harder to deal with the big blob, but that's preference. Lastly is Upset Stomach, which acid will spread out a lot more and water will have a shorter clearing distance. This can be a tough one to navigate, and I'd only really recommend turning this on if you're comfortable with the Roar special attack. That's all the boss rooms, so congrats for making it this far. Go talk to the helpful spirit and grab whatever you need or you didn't get the first time. I recommend making sure that you have one of everything from your sack in your inventory because you won't have much time later. Once you're ready, head through the southern door here. You can stand in this little main area for a while and compose yourself before going forward. If it's your first time here, you'll have to go through a dialogue with the ghost. If not, this will be your ready up time. When everyone readies up in the room will start. Be in your most accurate setup for this, whatever that is for you. For most players, that's either full crystal or a shadow. Start attacking the center obelisk. Skulls will start flowing from the center obelisk over to the automatons on the walls and charge them. One player needs to stand in the way of the skulls to prevent it from powering up. The statue that gets the most skulls will be the one that comes to life and fights you. We are going to force that to be the one on the west side because for most people, it's the easier one to fight. Stand in the way of the skulls until you take about 24 damage or are about at 76 HP if you were 99. Once you've had that much, step out of the way and continue hitting the obelisk. Briefly after, some yellow and red hot dog lights will come down from the ceiling and do rapid damage if you're in the way. The more damage you take from the skulls, the longer in between attacks this will be. After those lights go away, each automaton will shoot projectiles at you and your teammates. The first one for this configuration needs every player to be spread out from one another to avoid taking big damage. The second projectile needs everybody to stand together. Most players will meet on this tile here. Keep doing this until the obelisk dies. After this, the Warden will step out and begin fighting. This one is always weak to magic first, so put on your magic gear and start hitting him. If he shoots at a red skull, that's mage, and if he winds back and throws a little skull, that's ranged. He can also shoot out a large blue orb, sword, and large arrow. Pray mage, melee, and range accordingly. He will also throw out this little shadow rock thing here, which will just bind you in place, but it doesn't actually do damage. Just keep maging him. The real killer here is the 3 attacks that the obelisk will do in the meanwhile. I'm going to have you use this tile that I always use for simplicity. We'll just call it the Extile. Stand here, and here's how to handle the following attacks. Windmill. Wait until the windmill is right next to you. When it blinks, step 1 to the left and back when it's done. You'll have to do this 2 times. The pulse attack. Wait until the line is right behind your character and then step into it by 1 tile. Skulls, which is the hardest attack of them all. There will be shadows throughout the arena and skulls will land there and blow up the area. You can either run from the explosion range or stand within 1 to 2 tiles of the shadow in a plus configuration like so. Keep in mind the center tile is still dangerous. Once the Warden has been damaged all the way, he will go down and shoot out his core. As the core is coming out, swap to your melee gear and start beating the core up. This is a great time to use your adrenaline and dragon dagger to get a lot of damage out. You'll always hit your max hit with melee, so the best weapons are the ones that you can use fast with decent strength. The Fang is worse than just DDS stabbing due to how many hits you'll lose. The down will last longer the more that the fight goes on. Once he stands up, you'll have to range him, and this process will continue until he blows up. Now phase 3. The Warden is going to start smashing his nice tiled arena. Find the most center line here and maybe mark it with whatever way you want or use my tiles in the description. It's going to be really important to be able to distinguish the left, middle, and right side. The movement is going to go like this. Right, left, middle. Over and over again. Use your best ranged gear or mage gear and beat him up while moving in this cycle. Every 20% of his HP, he's going to become immune to damage and spawn some red skulls on the map. Put on a melee weapon of any kind, as they'll all be 1 tick, and hit them all as fast as possible. You'll notice that there's a sort of pattern to hitting each of them. If you have more than 3 players, you'll need to hit them all twice, and this can go up to 3 hits in larger groups. Once this attack is done, it will deal some strong damage to the Warden. Keep going as you were, and on the next down, Zebak will spawn in and hit you with the pots and rocks from earlier. Continue as you were, but be mindful of Zebak now. Briefly after that, Baba will spawn and use her rock fall attack. You're only really going to be navigating these 2 attacks. You can more or less ignore the Warden after a while. Keep this going until the Warden gets to very low HP. This will enter us into the Enrage phase. The left, right, middle thing is now out the window. Start damaging him as best as you can and still move from the Baba and Zebak attacks. There's going to be these new lightning shadows on the ground, and they're the most dangerous when they are the largest. Continue moving around the arena trying to avoid all of this. People in groups may want to occupy a nice 2x2 area to not get other players hit with rocks and such. Keep your ambrosia handy and push on through. Once he's dead, hit the gem and hopefully see your first purple. The Warden invocations are as follows. Ancient Haste makes the Warden's charge up a little bit faster, but you'll never notice. Acceleration makes the Warden's attack faster during the ranged and mage part. Penetration, which is praying wrong really hurts and disables prayer. Overclocked 1 and 2 makes the slam during the final fight a little faster. And lastly, Insanity, which is a hard invocation to learn but really easy when you have it down. It's worth 50 points, and that is a huge amount. The most noticeable changes are the way faster slams. It will resume where it left off and not always be right, left, middle. You won't have as much leeway to hit the skulls before you get blown up, and you will lose a lot of free tiles towards the end to stand on. Now that is all, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the description. I know that this was a longer one with a lot of information, but I wanted to be thorough. If this video was helpful, please sub and all that, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks so much for watching this far. Goodbye.